Yo guys, Visionless Gen here, bringing you the full Namor guide following the latest Season 3 update, breaking down all of his abilities, including his team-up, and addressing both his strengths and weaknesses. This is episode 26 of my Hero Series guides, with all of the previous episodes on the channel, and on that note, let's get right into it. So first things first, just as a general overview of the character, Namor is a great counter dive expert with high damage and AoE capabilities. Namor is a dive hero's worst nightmare. With his monstros being placed in good positions, he is capable at disrupting any dive hero from being effective and cutting down the momentum. Now, I've got loads of reps playing as Namor myself. He's a hero I think every player needs to understand in one way or another, either being able to play him yourself and be effective at doing so, or at the bare minimum, know what his strengths and weaknesses are as a pivotal meta hero throughout all of the seasons so far in Marvel Rivals, with a base health of 275 and a movement speed of 6 meters per second, which is pretty much standard for most of the characters in the game. He is a really sort of slow moving character in the sense that you kind of want to play more backline than you do aggressive, although you can be effective when you're playing aggressive. You just have to be in certain systems, i.e. you need a dive or brawling style tank in front of you, otherwise you're going to be the main damage focus of the other team, and he's quite a squishy target at only 275 base health and only has one real evasive abilities to try and escape certain situations, which of course I'll go over shortly. But as for his primary attack, this is known as the Trident of Neptune, where effectively you just throw a trident forward, nothing too complicated about it. However, it deals 70 damage per hit at a 1 round per second fire rate with infinite ammo, so of course you can just unleash a frenzy by just spamming R2. However, if you are precise with this ability, when you land hits on enemies, it can reduce your aquatic dominion's cooldown ability, which I'll go over shortly, and any criticals will allow those monsters that you place to enter a berserk state, gaining increased attack speed, which basically results in more damage. So it does sort of reward precise aiming and being more effective, but of course you can just spam your R2 and just land body shots, because if you're not capable at landing consistent criticals, then you're actually more effective at just going for the bigger targets, i.e. the torso and just chest areas and stuff like that, to land more consistent shots, as it does deal 70 damage per hit. But of course you just have to factor in, especially if it's a dive hero, which I'll go over very shortly with the other abilities, you do definitely want to try and land a good shot like a critical in order for your monsters to deal more damage to those targets that you're trying to mitigate and trying to get out of the game as quick as possible to win you team fights, i.e. strategists, or even, like I said, dive heroes. Now, as for his L2 ability, this is known as the Wrath of the Seven Seas. Now, just like with the primary attack itself, this ability has a 6-second cooldown, but the effectiveness of it is that if you land a hit on an enemy, what's going to happen is the monsters that you place down are going to target and prioritize that enemy that you have hit with this L2 ability, and when the trident hits an enemy, all of the monsters spawn in to enter that berserk state that I just went over, which gain an increased attack speed, dealing more damage and focusing solely on that primary target that you just landed the shot on. So effectively, if you can land this on a target, like I said, that you're trying to remove from the game as quick as possible and win your team fights, i.e. a strategist, you're going to really get a good chance at taking that person out of the game, because these monsters are really sneaky when placed in good situations, which basically I'll go over in a second. Now, as for the damage of this ability, it deals 40 damage on impact instead, has a 3-meter radius, so you can actually be a little inaccurate with it and still get rewarded for it, but then also deals a further 60 damage by the enhanced monsters spawned when they're impacted. Of course, when they're targeting that player, when they're in that berserk state, they will deal an additional amount of damage. Now, as for the monsters, as I keep going over to and alluding to, this is known as the Aquatic Dominion ability. By pressing L1, you summon monsters that can basically automatically attack enemies, and you're able to place 2 monsters each, and with each monster lasting 8 seconds, with 100 health each, and a maximum range of 40 meters. Now, each default monster basically fires 2 rounds per second, and the enhanced monster fires 5 rounds per second with 11 spawn damage, basically. So just bear that in mind, because again, if you place these in good spots and good positions around the map, you're going to catch players off guard, especially those dive heroes who are not going to expect it. And with 100 health, people actually have to focus on these. So if you can place them somewhere where they're not going to be primarily focused on, you can really deal a crazy amount of damage up to 40 meters away. Now, as for his R1 ability, this is his survivability ability, where effectively by pressing R1, this is the Blessing of the Deep, which summons a protective barrier while flying upwards in the air for 3 seconds, and has a 20-second cooldown in between uses, which was nerfed in the sort of season 2.5 update, I believe, which is effectively going to sort of reduce his survivability. However, the actual ability itself is really clutch for certain situations when you get dove on and you're trying to survive. Of course, you are pretty stranded in the fact that you're almost like isolated once you use the ability. Everyone knows where you are, everyone knows where you're going to land, and so on. But you can use this ability in key situations to keep yourself alive and also get up to areas and power spots really effectively to allow you to catch enemies out, especially again like those dive heroes. Now, as for his ultimate ability, this is known as the Horn of Proteus, where you summon a Giganto to leap into the air atop of enemies within range and then disabling all of their mobility abilities. So the players like Thor or Scarlet Witch or anyone that basically, or Psylocke, who likes to escape using an evasive ability, or Thor like Mjolnir, they basically will be stunned temporarily and stop them from being able to sort of escape. This is a really good ability for that effect. It's not necessarily more focused for the damage aspect, it's actually at the higher level more focused on setting up another ultimate by stunning enemies and leaving them susceptible, immobilized from actually moving away from the targeted area, you can actually use this ability as like a combo ult, something like Groot's ult, think of it like that, or Stranger's ult. If you sort of stun everyone and leave them really vulnerable to being killed, that is kind of how you want to use this. So the more enemies, of course, that you can immobilize, the better. Now, the delay of this lasts 1.5 seconds, and the range of the ability has a cylindrical spell field of an area radius of 3.5 meters and an outer circle radius of 9 meters with a height of 3 meters. So effectively, there's two little circles. There's a smaller circle in the middle and a larger circle on the outer side. Now, the ultimate has a maximum distance of 30 meters, so you have to be basically relatively close to be able to place this down. You can't be really far away, and only an energy cost of 3,100 energy, which is relatively cheap across all of the actual ults in the game. And also, as for the damage it deals, the inner circle, so the smaller circle of 3.5 meters, deals 500 damage. So if you can try and get someone right at the center, someone that's going to be a low health target, you are going to one-hit them if you can guarantee that it's going to land right at the center of where that enemy is. And the outer circle deals only 180 damage, but of course up to 9 meters away, so you can get lots of damage on multiple different players, especially on the objective. This is where this ultimate would be sort of recommended, where I'd advise to use it from my own experience, and also just generally to try and create the most amount of impact, to try and set up team fights and allow your other teammates to try and use their ultimates in a combo effect to be more effective. And that's kind of just generally from my own experience how I found it to be sort of the best way you could use it, especially for higher ranks in competitive. Now, as for his team ability, this is now the Gamma Monstro, where Hulk charges Namor with Gamma radiation, and when Namor receives the radiation, he will summon an extra Gamma Monstro, which will continuously fire Gamma rays at locked on enemies. Now, the longer this ray is locked onto an enemy, the higher the damage output. The monster itself has more health than the normal ones. It actually has 200 health and can attack up to 40 meters away just like the others, but lasts for 10 seconds instead of 8. This is a strong team ability in my opinion, a meta-defining team up, as this is literally, as I said, a dive hero's worst nightmare. As soon as you see the Gamma team ability and you're playing the likes of Magic, Black Panther, even Captain America, you're just going to be constantly aggroed by these monsters, and there's really not much you can do as a ground and melee-based character, so it's really annoying and problematic. So this is why I said that he is basically the expert at being a counter-dive player because of these abilities, especially that team ability. But for the most part, in summary, Namor has always been a very consistently strong duelist in the game, whose versatility allows him to fit into most systems. With him being a strong counter-dive hero and an expert at that, he's the perfect solution to use against dive heroes due to his monsters and that Gamma team ability, as I just said. In my opinion, he's one of the best and most fun characters to play. I love shutting down the likes of dive heroes. I cannot stand them. I just can't. I just have an issue with the way that evasive characters play and how they thrive off benefiting from better teammates. Maybe that's all relative, and maybe if I start maining dive heroes more, I may change my tune on that. But from my own experience as a Vanguard main, I have found that the only real way a dive hero is super effective is due to the fact that you have better Vanguards and, of course, healers in your game. Otherwise, if you're playing against a good lobby of a good team of people, you will obviously have a counter dive hero on the setup, whether it's Penny, whether it's Mantis, whether it's Namor, whoever it may be. They're pretty easy to shut down once you start focusing on them and isolating them. However, they are more effective when the rest of the team is focusing on other players on the field, such as a damage mitigating tank and so on, which is again what I've played a lot of. And then when I sort of go and play other characters, other duelists that I want to try and learn and have sort of a fun time with, I just find that they just get away with, these dive heroes get away with murder because of other teammates on the playing field, and it's just a personal issue that I have with dive heroes. I cannot stand them, so I really enjoy and thrive off playing Namor. And if you're someone like me and you don't enjoy playing against dive heroes, or you just cannot stand the character and its playstyle in general, then play Namor, because I promise you there's no better character at shutting them down in this game than Namor. He is just literally the expert at being a counter dive hero, a problem for any dive character for the most part. If you know how to play him and you play your monsters in the right areas, especially if you're utilizing the fact that he has good range and also landing critical shots, because being precise with this character will really reward you by your monsters being more effective, and also of course you're just going to deal more damage. But anyways guys, that's pretty much it for the most part. If you guys have enjoyed the video and the guide on Namor, let me know down below in the comments, as I'll get right back to you, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts. And if you have any cool clips or tips or tricks that you've learned along the way of playing Namor or even against him, then also let me know down below in the comments. And also, if you're a dive hero and you have any controversial opinion or want to debate anything with me, by all means also let me know down below. I'm always interested to hear the dive perspective and see what type of thoughts and different opinions that you guys might have. So as well, if you're a Magic main, a Black Panther especially, let me know down below in the comments, because I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. Anyways guys, I'm Vision SGN. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.